You know, one of the things that we hear most often from people who come in to either visit the church or are new staff members, when they just stop and look around, is, wow, things move pretty fast around here. And just as a church in general, I think that's one of the things that's maybe most well known about us. Why such a high sense of urgency? Why do we move so fast? And then on the flip side, how do we pace ourselves for the long haul?
I think a lot of people don't believe about the gospel, about what we say we believe about the gospel. You know, we would not even be asking a question about urgency if what we really believed is that people spend eternity separated from God if they don't place their faith in Jesus Christ. Urgency would not even be a side item or an optional add-on to any church or any Christian for that matter.
Right.
So there's a general confusion about what we're doing as a church. If all we're doing is kind of manicuring and maintaining real estate in culture, then let's don't be very urgent about it. In fact, let's find something else to do, because I could probably do something that would make a lot more money and wouldn't be as hard. So let's drop the whole thing. If when Jesus said, upon this rock I'll build my church, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. If when he left and the church is plan A and there's no plan B, then you don't even really get to ask, why is it urgent?
Yeah.
Nobody has to tell a parent who sees their child drowning that this is an urgent matter. And no parent, when they see their child drowning, if they ever are in that unfortunate situation, would say, well, swimming really isn't my specialty or my passion. Nobody would do that.
Right.
And so a sense of urgency is based out of belief.
Right.
So I got to go back to what I believe. Do I believe that I'll give an account to God? If I do, that places a standard on me that should be greater than any standard any other human can put on me.
Right.
So nobody's ever going to have to raise the standard higher for me if my standard is Jesus. If I really don't believe, now I'm not talking about what I say or what I give assent to, but if I really don't believe that I'm going to stand before God one day, if that doesn't drive me in any way, if I really don't believe that Christ is the only way to God and that people are lost without him, then my urgency, no matter how much you try to pump it or hype it, is always going to be below the waterline.
Right.
And so we started the church with a sense of urgency simply out of mission and belief.
Yep.
Now we have an interesting dynamic at play in our church, because there is no urgency to grow a big church. The church is already big.
Right.
There is no urgency to pull off the worship experience, because it happens like clockwork. If one person doesn't do it, somebody else will. If that person doesn't, somebody else will. When it was just a few people, you had to do it. There was no option to not have a sense of urgency. There were only so many people. But now I'm trying to say, and this training is part of that, how do you invest the same sense of urgency in people? Some people just are not built to care a lot. Some people are just not built to be urgent. Some people just don't, at the core of who they are, believe that this matters and it's life and death. They would understand urgency maybe in a war on the front lines of combat, but they couldn't understand it in terms of church. It's just some songs, it's just a sermon, it's just a church. There's more. And if that's your starting point, I can't compel you or manage you into caring. But now, how do you make somebody feel like what they do is urgent, even if there's somebody else who would do it if they didn't? And I think that's where you got to get into a place of a personal sense of mission and accountability to God.
That's right.
If that drives you, then nobody has to look over your shoulder.
Right.
If that drives you, then you're always going to analyze your own performance way more than anybody else could analyze it. People can give you perspective, but I should never have to be telling you why this matters.
Right.
Maybe I can be helping you understand how to translate your passion into results or how to adjust something, calibrate. But if I have to make it matter to you, you're not right for this movement.
That's right.
It's got to matter to you. You hear the vision, it resonates. God puts it in you. And if you're doing it for me, and if you're doing it to help me out, or you're doing it for another human being, that's a limited resource. You will eventually run out of motivation. But if the love of Christ compels you, if the grace of God empowers you, if the mission of God is directing you, and if God's reward is incentivizing you, then you'll never give up. You won't stop. I can't make you quit. I've had some people that quit so easily, I couldn't believe how little it took to run them off. I walked into my Greek professor's office in college. I took Greek for about 2.5 weeks. I walked in with one of those little slips, pink slips that you use to drop a course. And he saw me at the door. He didn't even look up from his desk. He said, "That didn't take long. I knew we'd run you off." Part of me was like, wait a minute. But then the other part of me was like, I mean, I really don't care enough. So I'd rather be embarrassed for a minute and just go ahead and turn this thing in. Because at the end of the day, I didn't feel like doing Greek in college was make or break for me. I knew I was going on to seminary. I knew that I didn't believe that you have to know Greek to be used by God. And I knew that I was leading a lot of other ministries. It just didn't matter enough. So he couldn't shame me or ridicule me or motivate me into it. There's nothing anybody could do because I didn't want it. But another person in that same class, you could have berated them and ridiculed them every day and they wouldn't have gotten run off. Now, the interesting thing about me is I'm a determined person. Once I make my mind up to do something, then I'm going to do it. You have to kill me to get me not to do it. You would have to kill me. It's the only way you could stop me. But first, I got to care about it. Yeah. And I think everybody is a passionate person about what they care about. That's right. And so when people complain about the pace of life at the church, I'll see that same person, if they're planning their wedding, go all out. Man, they put in all the time, all the effort, all the energy. If they're building a house, man, they want to be all up on every detail. But when you want to make it for the church, it's so hard. It's taking it too far. That says something about your passion. That means you're not passionate about this. Because if you really care about it, I won't have to sign off for final approval on what you do. You'll love it so much that you'll be intrinsically motivated. So I want people that love it that much. I don't expect anybody to ever love it quite like I do, but I expect a lot of you to come close. And maybe you don't love it the way I do, because it was inside of me before it came into the world. But you should love it. You should love it with a similar passion and intensity. Or you should get out of the way and let somebody else do it who does. And so I think I told you one time, Hubecca, we're always going to be out of breath. I was like, get used to it. We're always going to be like, that's your normal breathing pattern from now on. That is normal. That is a sign of health. That you're a little winded. Sometimes you're a little less winded, but even then, you're just saving up because you are about to sprint again. And if you like that, cool, this is going to be great. If you don't, if you're like, no, I enjoy speed walking. I'm not really a sprint guy. I'm not really an endurance athlete. I'm more of a, when we talk about being in it for the long haul. The funny thing about saying we're in it for the long haul is I see people dropping out of ministries that have no standard of excellence and no standard of performance a lot quicker than they do out of high things. And Jesus wasn't in to making sure everybody made it for the long haul. He was into making sure the right people made it for the long haul. He would let people leave in a heartbeat. Oh, you guys don't want to be here if I start preaching about this? Come back by all means. We'll slow it down a little bit. Oh, we don't have to go to the cross. If that's offensive to you or you're not ready for you, we can do that next year. He stayed true to his mission. He stayed true to his focus. If you want to hang, hang. Oh, but he left the 99 to find the one sheep that went astray. Yeah, but that speaks to the heart of the shepherd to bring people back into the fold. See, that doesn't speak to if you're a staff member and you can't keep up, we lower the standard so we can keep you around. That's not what that speaks to. Don't take Jesus out of context. He doesn't like that. He doesn't like being misquoted. That doesn't mean that I will leave what God has called me to do to accommodate somebody else's lack of passion. That just means that, in fact, it means the opposite. It means that Jesus will go after the one that he passionately wants to go after. even at the expense of leaving the 99 and leaving them to find their own way. And so I would say to you, evaluate your passion. I would ask you to make sure that you have a real passion for what you're doing. And I would ask you to make sure that nobody has to be more passionate about your work than you are. Yeah. Remember, there's a volunteer who does for a hobby what a staff member gets paid to do for their living. So I don't apologize for high standards.